D8 summit concludes in Egypt. U.S. economy grows at an annualized rate of 3.1% in the third quarter. And Bank of England maintains its main interest rate at 4.75%. Welcome to the Economic Bulletin, where we present a comprehensive coverage and expert insights on the latest economic trends and developments. The 11th D8 Organization for Economic Cooperation Summit has concluded in Cairo after having convened leaders from 8 developing Islamic countries to address critical global economic and political issues. Held under the theme Investing in Youth and Supporting Small and Medium Enterprises, Shaping the Economy of Tomorrow, the summit focused on fostering sustainable development. Discussions aim to strengthen economic cooperation among member states, with a special session dedicated to the situations in Palestine and Lebanon. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has announced initiatives to boost economic cooperation among D8 member states. These include creating a diplomatic leadership network, launching a student competition for fostering innovation, and establishing a network of economic think tanks. El-Sisi also revealed plans for regular health minister meetings, with Egypt hosting the first in 2025. He emphasized Egypt's commitment to ratifying the D8 preferential trade agreement to enhance intra-member trade.
Economic cooperation took center stage at the 11th summit of the DA Organization for Economic Cooperation in Cairo, where Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi unveiled key initiatives to drive growth and innovation among the 8 member states. President el-Sisi outlined a vision for stronger collaboration among D8 nations, focusing on economic growth and innovation. He proposed establishing a diplomatic leadership network to enhance capacity building among directors of diplomatic institutes in an effort to tackle pressing global challenges. In a bid to inspire future innovation, El-Sisi launched an electronic competition for pre-university students, promoting advancements in science and technology. To deepen economic ties, El-Sisi suggested forming a network of economic think tanks to share trade and investment strategies. He also emphasized Egypt's commitment to ratifying the D8 preferential trade agreement, which could boost inter-member trade. Healthcare cooperation was highlighted, with plans for regular health minister meetings starting in Cairo in 2025 to advance medical technologies. El-Sisi urged unity to address shared economic challenges, including unemployment, funding shortages, and technological gaps, while mitigating the economic effects of Middle East conflicts. With Egypt assuming the DA presidency, these initiatives pave the way for stronger economic collaboration and sustainable development across member states.
The Developing Eight Summit for Economic Cooperation has issued the Cairo Declaration after it was approved by the summit's leaders. The D8 Cairo Declaration reaffirms the commitment of members to sustainable agriculture, addressing climate change, and enhancing cooperation in science, technology, and innovation. Participating countries also agreed to improve logistics, support emerging sectors like digital commerce, and promote inclusive growth through small businesses. They will also focus on boosting investment, increasing intra-G8 trade, and strengthening multilateral cooperation. Joining us from Cairo is Professor of Economics Dr. Wafa Ali to discuss the latest developments related to the 11th Summit of the Developing Eight, D8 Organization for Economic Cooperation, and its outcomes. Welcome to Qnews.
Greetings, everybody.
What economic impact is expected from the D8 Summit on member countries? And how can the summit enhance trade and investment cooperation among member states?
Undoubtedly, there is now a new phase of momentum, a momentum of meetings convened between the 8 member states, which is actually a quantum leap in the region. Specifically, that this summit comes in synchronization with the eruption of a lot of tumultuous regional and international events, and so that made it necessary for the 8 member states of the D8 summit to convene and to consolidate their economic power, specifically that they have a lot of great economic statures, and they have a total GDP of $8 trillion in total. In fact, there were a number of initiatives ratified today aiming to establish a comprehensive connected network between the 8 member states in order to foster the use of renewable energy and means of transportation and different innovation practices. In fact, the 8 member states wish to blur the lines between their territories by establishing more consolidated cooperation. In fact, this group holds a strong economic stature. The population of the 8 member states, in fact, comprises 14% out of the total global population. And Egypt, through this summit, announced its readiness to invest in infrastructure and to share its different national expertise, like that related to Haya Karima or Decent Life initiative. As well, Egypt offered to pass down its expertise in the field of youth SMEs and innovation to the rest of the member states. As well, new initiatives were unveiled relating to the convening of ministers of health from the 8 member states in order to foster the pharmaceutical industries in the 8 member states and as well the preferential agreement ratification between the 8 member states is something quite important, because the number of the figures of trade between the 8 member states right now is, I would say, meager relative to the developments happening in the global
Dr.
markets.
President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has unveiled several initiatives aimed at fostering economic growth and innovation among the 8 member states. How important are these initiatives from your own perspective and your narrative, and what impact could they have on intra-D8 cooperation?
Undoubtedly, Egypt pays due care to human resource development, and Egypt gives specific care to its youth. Egypt is a young country, in fact, with 67% of its population from the youth, and so vertical and horizontal growth were very important for Egypt to be tackled in tandem. In fact, for instance, the youth that studied in the presidential program were able to advance a lot of economic practices, as well the decent life, as well as the presidential program, as well as other initiatives, are all working in tandem in order to foster national economy and as well to advance digitization in different domains of life in the Egyptian state. And Egypt and the Egyptian president, in fact, has been quite innovative in his ways, since he gives due care to the youth and to engage the youth in the national economy channels and in socio-economic practices under the auspices of the Egyptian presidency as well. In fact, the president of Egypt is right now mapping some kind of a road for the youth in order to find a bright future for them in the midst of the tumultuous socio-economic and geopolitical situations that Egypt from right now. Dr. Wafa?
And what role do you think the ratification of the D8 preferential trade agreement will play in increasing intra-regional trade? Are there any specific industries that stand to benefit the most?
Of course, Egypt adopts specific subjects, among which is the achievement of integrated, comprehensive economic growth. And one of the sub-subjects of this pillar is the renewable energy subject and the infrastructure subject. In fact, the infrastructure subject specifically has peculiar pillars that Egypt is trying to tackle, as it is now trying to counter climate change or to adapt to climate change.
Okay, Dr. Wafa, because I want to get the most out of your knowledge, of course. As for Cairo Declaration approved by member states, how important is this document and how effective could it be?
In fact, there has to be incentivizing packages between the member states relative to customs tariffs between the member states. There has to be, in fact, a road map that can be operationalized throughout the term of the President Abdel Fattah Sisi's presidency, because he has been given due care, of course, to the trade subject and customs tariff subject specifically. And right now we can see that the 8 member states are actually prioritizing intra-trade and matters relating to supply chains deceleration. In fact, through the partnership of this group, Egypt is trying to increase vertical and horizontal complementarity between the member states. And right now, Egypt is trying, in fact, to change the status quo of global economy by establishing more complementarity between the member states.
Dr. Wafaa. Thank you very much, Dr. Wafaa, for your insights and for your informative knowledge. And now let's move on to the latest developments from all around the world. In the United States, the Federal Reserve cut interest rates by 0.25% points on December 18th. But Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell has emphasized that further reductions depend on continued progress in controlling inflation. Powell cautioned that the new phase of economic policies under President-elect Donald Trump, including tariffs and tax cuts, could influence inflation expectations, leading to fewer rate cuts than previously anticipated. The Fed now projects only 0.25% point rate reductions by the end of 2025, with inflation expected to remain above the 2% target until 2027.
Lowering our policy interest rate by a quarter percentage point. The economy is strong overall and has made significant progress toward our goals.
The Commerce Department's Bureau of Economic Analysis has said that the United States economy grew at an annualized rate of 3.1% in the third quarter, revised up from 2.8%, driven by strong consumer spending. The growth was supported by increased consumer spending and exports, which outweighed downward revisions to private inventory investment. This follows a 3% expansion in Q2, marking a pace well above the Federal Reserve's non-inflationary growth target of 1.8%. Despite ongoing concerns about inflation and certain Trump administration policies, the economy's resilience continues. The Labor Department has stated that the number of Americans filing new unemployment claims dropped by 22,000 to 220,000 for the week ending December 14th, beating expectations. This suggests a gradual cooling of the labor market, with claims remaining volatile. Despite this, the overall labor market remains looser than pre-pandemic levels, and the Federal Reserve, which recently cut interest rates, noted the labor market risk has diminished, though concerns about inflation and upcoming policies from President-elect Donald Trump remain. The Bank of England has maintained its main interest rate at 4.75% on Thursday, despite growing divisions within its Monetary Policy Committee over the necessity of rate cuts to address the slowing economy. BOE Governor Andrew Bail reiterated the central bank's gradual approach to reducing rates, citing economic uncertainty. While United States and European central banks have been more aggressive in cutting rates, the BOE has only reduced rates by 0.5 percentage point this year. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz urged EU policy makers to avoid inflicting more damage on the European Union's struggling auto industry in remarks at the start of a summit in Brussels.
In der bedrängten Situation, in der die Automobilindustrie in vielen Fällen weltweit, aber ganz besonders in Europa ist, macht es auch keinen Sinn, sie jetzt noch zusätzlich mit Strafzahlungen wegen nicht erzielter Ergebnisse im kommenden Jahr 25 zu belasten. Das muss auch jetzt bald entschieden werden. Und deshalb sollte die Kommission einen Weg finden, dass die Strafzahlungen, falls sie erforderlich würden, nicht die finanzielle Liquidität der Unternehmen, die jetzt in Elektromobilität, in moderne Produkte und Fahrzeuge investieren müssen, beeinträchtigt. Und im Übrigen zeigt sich, dass es sinnvoll ist, dass wir die Produktion von Elektrofahrzeugen gemeinsam in Europa anregen.
New Zealand's economy fell into recession in the third quarter, with GDP contracting 1%, far worse than the expected 0.2% drop. The decline follows the 1.1% fall in the previous quarter, marking the largest two-quarter downturn since 1991. The sharp contraction has led to growing expectations of further interest rate cuts by the Reserve Bank of New Zealand, with markets anticipating a 50 basis point cut in February. Finance Minister Nicola Willis blamed high inflation and the central bank's policies for stifling growth. President Vladimir Putin has stated that the Russian economy is stable, but warned of signs of overheating contributing to high inflation. He indicated that the economy could grow by 4% this year, but expressed concern over inflation as a key issue. Putin emphasized that both the government and the central bank are working to address these concerns. Looking ahead, he predicted growth would slow to 2.2 to 2.5% next year, aiming for a soft landing to maintain macroeconomic stability.
Подсчет результатов в конце года, он досчитывается.
The Bank of Japan kept its benchmark interest rate at 0.25% after a two-day policy meeting. Policymakers are monitoring wage trends, inflation, and U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's policies before making future decisions. The BOJ last raised rates in July, and this marks the third consecutive meeting with no change. Governor explained that more data on wage trends is needed to confirm a strong wage price cycle. He also expressed concerns about the uncertainty surrounding Trump's fiscal trade and immigration policies. Chainalysis has revealed that funds stolen through the hacking of cryptocurrency platforms surged 21% to $2.2 billion in 2024. The number of incidents rose to 303, up from 282 in 2023. This marks the fourth consecutive year where thefts exceeded $1 billion. The increase comes amid the booming crypto market, with Bitcoin reaching over $100,000, attracting institutional investors. The report noted that most hackers targeted centralized platforms, with North Korea-linked cyber crime escalating to a record of $1.3 billion, highlighting the country's use of crypto to evade sanctions. That's all for now. Here's the roundup for today's key headlines. D8 summit concludes in Egypt. United States economy grows at an annualized rate of 3.1% in the third quarter. And Bank of England maintains its main interest rate at 4.75%. That's all for today's economic bulletin and Q News. Stay connected for more news and updates.